Do you have a date tonight and you want to take her out to the swamp? Maybe, want to go gigging for some frogs, something like that. Something really romantic, because nothing says a romantic date like spearing an amphibian right in the head with a trident that they give, like the Navy SEALs, that's their medal or whatever, and they give them a trident. That's what you do when you go gig frogs. You hit them in the head, or you poke them in the head. Well, let's say you don't want to get blood all over your feet, and you certainly don't want to get all that swamp water in your feet. Well, what other boot are you going to wear? Because I know when I go out on dates, I'm wearing dry shod boots, and I'm married, and she still don't care what I wear out there. So I'm staying warm, I'm staying dry on my feet when I go out on my dates, or if I may have to go, check some water, change over some sprinklers, go ahead and get in the mud, maybe change out a gearbox in the mud, and I want this boot to not only keep me warm and dry, but to protect it. That's why I got the steel-toed. Can you believe they make a steel-toed rubber boot? I can't imagine it. But Dry Shod USA, that's the dryshodusa.com. That's the website you're going to go to. And also, you can find them on Twitter. And their handle is at Dry Shod Footwear. Now, Dry Shod Footwear, you'll better be following me, because you're only following like 9 people right now, and I'm not one of them. And you've got 111 followers, so come on, let's pick it up a little bit. But check them out, dryshodusa.com, and you won't be sorry. If you're going on a date, you won't be embarrassed. Dry Shod, dryshodusa.com.
Sometimes in life, you find yourself on the right side of the line.
This looks like what Roger Moore would look like if he had his feet up in imaginary stirrups while he was laying out on a beach towel.
Brent, that just ain't right. I'm surprised they used toilet paper.
That Dixie cup you're drinking from looks like a shot glass. Did your head get that much bigger? It looks like the Unabomber with a hat on. Now a member of the Global Ag Network. Jesus. Well, everybody, believe it or not, this is an actual, well, I don't know. I wouldn't call this a serious episode. Would you, Kevin?
I'm hoping it's not too serious.
God, I hope not. Well, everybody, that's not Landon you just heard. That is the Reverend Kevin Bushart. He is our preacher, pastor, reverend. What are you?
I'm revved up most of the time.
So what's the ranking order? Pastor, preacher, reverend? What's the pecking order there?
Protestants, we don't worry too much about. You get over into the Episcopals and the Catholics, they've got reverends and right reverends and bishops and archbishops and popes. I'm trying for pope, but I haven't been asked yet.
Oh, there's too many skeletons in that closet. Well, if everybody hasn't already turned off this episode yet, no, this is a real person. This isn't some bit we're doing. I thought we would get the man of the hour. I don't know if he's a man of the hour. Have you ever been the man of the hour? Did you ever listen to the Hour of Power with Schuller?
Yeah, it's our
He's still alive?
No, he died, lost everything.
Jeez. Well, yeah, he was. I always remember my mom watching that before we go to church on Sunday mornings.
I will tell you, I was Citizen of the Year in Melrose, New Mexico, back in 1998.
Was that like you were just the next one in line, or what?
I was the first non-native born Melrose, New Mexican to ever be named Citizen of the Year.
What do you get for that?
A plaque.
A plaque?
And that was it.
You know what you get in Hereford? You get a piece of crap on a plaque. You get a cow chip on a plaque?
No, I didn't. No, seriously, I was kind of shocked when they did that. I was, because I was on that volunteer fire department, and I made 98% of the calls because I was the only one in town. I mean, in Melrose, there's only 5 people. So,
right.
So I was in town and went on all the fire calls, and so they made me Citizen of the Year.
All the finalists for Melrose Citizen of the Year could all be at the same dinner table every night.
Just about.
Just about. Well, I thought we'd bring on Kevin. He's always been he's been our preacher here at the First United Methodist Church in Hereford for the last, 100 years? 11 years. And unfortunately, sadly, they'll be leaving us and they'll be moving on to another church here this summer. And I thought I'd try to get him on the podcast before they took off, and I could get him with a good microphone voice and not something over the telephone. So Kevin, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, how you got started? I know you were a military man. Why don't you start there and give us a little info?
Well, it was a dark and stormy night back on now.
My mother was in terrible pain, and I was charging through.
I was actually born on a Sunday morning, kept my mother from going to church. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. My mom got up, got all my brothers and sisters ready for church, sent them off to Sunday school, said to my dad, we probably ought to go to the hospital. I was born about 20 minutes after they pulled into the parking lot. So, yeah, my mom was Superwoman as far as I was concerned.
Wow.
7
so you
kids.
Just fell right on out, and
there
next thing you know, you're in New York State.
I grew up in New York and went to college, and then was going to be a preacher from when I was a young boy. That was always, everybody told me I was going to be a preacher. But I kind of...
What did you say?
That's what I wanted to do. And I preached my first sermon when I was about 13 years old in our home church. But anyways, after Bible college, there's a long story. It doesn't matter. But I strayed and ended up walking into a recruiter's office one day. And next thing I knew, I was in the processing line and joined the U.S. Air Force.
Nice.
Don't know why I did it to this day, but I'm kind of glad I did. It worked out.
But you didn't fly. You were a airplane guy, though.
I was an aircraft mechanic on KC-135, so refuelers.
So does everybody that go in the Air Force, do they all think they're going to be pilots?
No, and it was funny because when I got to basic training in the military, to be an officer, you have to have a bachelor's degree.
Right.
I already had my bachelor's degree. My recruiter, and I didn't know anything much about the military, my recruiter never told me that I could have gone straight in as an officer. Oh, yeah. And when I got down to Lackland there in San Antonio, my drill instructor, a little black lady, about 5 foot nothing tall, she made grown men cry in their sleep. I mean, this lady was scary. Wow. And anyway, she says to me one day, she says, why are you here? And I said, well, it's where it told me to come, ma'am. And she said, well, you could have gone to OCS. I said, I could have. Yeah, she said, Officer Candidate School. You should have been on the other side of the base. I said, well, can I go now? And she just laughed at me and walked away.
There's lots of sympathy in the United States military, I take it.
Who cares? So, anyways, but no, I ended up in, they told me I had an aptitude for mechanics, which I do not.
Did you take the ASVAB test?
I took the ASVAB, and I scored high in aircraft mechanics. The military, I don't know what it's like now, but in the 80s, I mean, these things were written, the tests were like, Dick and Jane have a brown dog. What color is Dick and Jane's dog?
Oh.
I mean, it was
some rocket science.
It was ridiculous. I'd go in there and I'd take the tests in basic, and I'd be done in like 3 minutes, and they're like, well, we allotted 45 minutes for this test. This is stuff I did in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
They just kind of shook their head and told me, go sit down and study my books.
We really thought the connect the dots puzzle would really throw you for a little bit.
Yeah. But anyway, so I ended up working the flight line, and it was interesting. I got to actually, just in 5.5 years, but I got to travel a lot. Saudi Arabia, Spain, the Azore Islands, spent 4 years in England. And it was a good experience.
What was the best place to go to?
I really enjoyed England. I mean, we were there 4 years, and I loved it.
Well, yeah, you found a woman there.
I did. I went. I was kind of a broken man and broken marriage.
There's like 4 Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard songs we've covered so far. Just so you know, you were born on a Sunday morning. You were a broken man in England. Did you shoot a man in Reno just to watch him die, too?
I did not shoot a man in Reno, but I did drink a beer on Friday night. So
there you go.
I was down at the club. But I met my bride over there, and it worked out okay in the end.
So far, it's worked out pretty good on the whole marriage side. Well, that's good to hear. Always like to hear a good military story when I can find one. Well, guys, we're going to talk a little bit religion, a little bit. I'm going to try to ask the questions that people don't want to get asked, or you don't think you can ask a preacher. But after 11 years, trust me, this cat you can ask him anything, and he'll say that's what she said. Because at this point, he doesn't have he's spent at this point.
I'm done.
But we're gonna have a holy commercial and a forecast here in a second, and we'll be back with our main interview and a little rapid fire question. I don't know if we'll have a time for a heaven and hell quiz or not, but I'm curious to I'm curious to see what he thinks, what certain famous people's final destinations were. But we'll be here with all that and more on the Dryline Farmer Podcast. Let's pretend for a moment that it's 1000 BC, and you're just a lonely Hebrew single guy wandering the wilderness for 40 years and don't have one notch on your belt to account for. What do? There's no eharmony.com or anything like that. How are you going to get your name out and let all the women know, all 12 tribes, that you're in the mood for a little love? Well, here at Foreskins for a Wife, we are just the company you need. Foreskins for a Wife. It was good enough for David, and it was good enough. I mean, let's think about it for a second. You want a babe, right? You know, preferably in the Benjamite tribe. And the only way that the king will let you have his daughter is if you go out and whack like a billion Philistines, and you go out, drop their, like, I don't know what kind of skirts they wore back then, and then you just start getting that little guillotine thing and just start whacking down, just going down the line. And you've got to bring like a bag full of these things, and all you got to do is do that, and he'll give you your daughter. Well, that's why we're here for you. Foreskins for a Wife. These are pre-packaged. You don't have to go out and kill anybody. Don't tell us how we got. Don't ask us. We'll tell you if you ask us, but don't ask us how we got these. Foreskins for a Wife. Why do it yourself when you can buy it on Amazon, even though it didn't really exist 3,000 years ago? Foreskins for a Wife. You won't even break a sweat to get your pet. You know, that's what they called them back then, the wives, pets, and concubines and all that.
He's been promising for an episode for a week, Hey, this is Orlando Ricardo, de la serio, bringing your Dryland Farmer Podcast weather update. Well, Brent, I think summer's come early, bato, because, cabrón, listen, it's all 95 degrees or whatever, and it's pinche May the 1st, and then, we didn't even get, our short pants out yet or nothing. We still have our winter clothes in the closet and, in the drawers, because that's, how organized we are. More than you, cabrón, since you say you're gonna, put out a podcast episode every week, and then it's not even it's every other week, and then the weekend that comes out it's not till it's a Saturday or whatever, and then it's all be lazy. You pretend you're all busy or whatever, but I see you outside just kind of lounging around in the warm sun. Well, anyway, about the forecast, it's it's gonna be hot for the weekend or whatever, but next week it's gonna be back in the 70s, and it's kind of back to normal spring weather. Fortunately, it hasn't been too windy. It's usually time it kind of blows and blows, vato. And I don't know how to put that in personification terms or whatever without being all nasty. But hey, man, it's been pretty calm considering the years past. Well, hey, it always kills me to do these commercials in my voice, vato. And this week's the Hebrews, man, they had some things. I mean, they were good and everything, and straight, but the whole foreskin thing, well, this company, man, they'll go out and get them for you, man. That way you could take them back to the king or whatever. If it was 1000 BC or whatever, to the king, and you could pick up your wife, and can you imagine walking up there with a bag of those things? But well, that's what they do for you for a limited time only. And fortunately, it's all for pretend or whatever. And we don't do that anymore. We just take them out on a date, a dinner and a movie or whatever. Wouldn't that be weird if we did it the other way? This is Radar Ricardo, and then is video. Back to you.
All right, guys, thanks for that forecast, and y'all need to find a church pretty quick. I know that your lives are going down a wrong path, and I'm sure going to one church service will fix it, right?
We can get them whipped up into shape pretty quick. There you go.
Because everybody that goes to church is it's just kind of like getting a shot, like a coronavirus shot. It's just kind of one stop and go. And
That's it. I mean,
To hell with it.
You're sanctified right there on the spot. So no, it don't work that way.
It doesn't work
usually.
that quite well. Well, we might learn a little bit about that here on this segment of the Dryland Farmer Podcast. Check out this music I got for you. It's never been played before, but here we go. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't have any words. All right, Kev. So now you're a Methodist. You're a Methodist preacher. Now, is that where you grew up?
No, I didn't grow up in the Methodist church, but after we left England, we came back to New York. Another wonderful military thing. I put in for every base from Florida to Maine, and they sent me to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Jeez.
And this is a true story. I walked into my commander's office with my orders in my hand, the green and white computer papers. And I walked in there and I looked at my commander and this is what I said to him. Y'all excuse me, but I said, "Sir, where the hell is Albuquerque, New Mexico?" And he just laughed. I grew up in the Northeast. I mean, we traveled.
We're big on geography, were you?
Well, I didn't know anything about the Southwest other than I'd been to, I guess I went to San Antonio, but that wasn't much.
Yeah,
you didn't see much in basic.
No, you probably didn't see much outside of your KP
there
duty and your
you
30-mile run every day or whatever y'all did.
Not quite 30, but no. And then, but anyways, we ended up in Albuquerque and we got involved with a little Methodist church out there, and it ended up being a good thing. And that was when we'll do the serious stuff, then you can get to the good stuff.
Okay.
That was when my life sort of started to change and turn around, and I come back to realizing that I needed to do what God asked me to do. So went to seminary from there and been back out in this area. The rest is history.
So you mentioned that about kind of you knew you were going to be a preacher. Tell me about the whole calling thing. When people is that a deal that's overused when people said, "Oh, I've been called to this," or is it you're just leaving it up to them to really knowing that they're saying the truth, or it's just not something that people say anymore?
It's pretty subjective, but actually there should be some objective evidence. I mean, I knew one guy that told me he wanted to go into ministry. And Brent, I'm telling you, this dude, I mean, he could bore a dead fish. I mean, this guy was, and he had no skills. He had no people skills. And I was on a committee interviewing him. We sat down with him and we said, "Look, Bill, that was his name. We said, Bill, you're a nice guy. This isn't the place for you." And he, of course, got angry and stormed out. But
so he showed a little bit of personality there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that there people hear a call. There should be some evidence of it, but it is somewhat subjective, yeah.
Can it be like for anything?
What do you mean?
Like anything in life?
Oh, yeah. But I think sometimes it's used, you hear these preachers, "Well, God told me to go lock myself in this tower till everybody gave me $1 million, and then I'm going to go do this or go do that." Well, I'm
probably
not
not.
Sure. Probably not, other than the fact that your wife needed a new Porsche, I guess. But that's a whole nother story for me.
So, all right. So the preachers that make all the money, the big money guys, what do you think? Are preachers free to make all the money they want? Or is it just a bad case of bad optics?
I don't know if that's the best thing. I always said a pastor ought to make what the average person in his congregation makes, and shouldn't make a whole lot more or a whole lot less. It depends on your congregation. But yeah, this thing of these guys, and a lot of them, they do some pretty dubious stuff that it wouldn't be my choice, let's put it that way.
So if there was a church in Hollywood, you'd want to be a preacher of it because the median income would be like, $30 million per picture?
Yeah, probably not. Not my. I'm a country kid at heart. I grew up in a small rural town in upstate New York and dairy farms, and I'm just a country kid. I'm not real interested in anything much beyond that.
Oh man, yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm sure that obviously there's churches over there, but I remember we were going to Seattle for a deal one time, and I was looking up churches just out of the heck of it. Maybe we might go see one like a Methodist church, and all over their webpage was not. It was about a certain social construct that had a bunch of different colors, rainbow colors.
Yeah,
and I don't want to go there, but that's all it was about. It wasn't about anything else. That was their. I mean, it was their religion. That was their religion.
Well, I think a person can even be, even if you look on the more conservative side, you can be. I don't want to say you want to be balanced in your approach to life.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta laugh, you gotta smile, you gotta enjoy life, you gotta have a sense of humor, and there's time to be serious, and there's time to be a little more.
Okay, let me pull up Ecclesiastes real quick here because I do know that.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my hard copy Bible, but I do got my phone with Bible Gateway on it, and we can.
Do you have the what version do you have there? Do you have the Greek Septuagint on there? What do you got?
No, I don't. I did study Greek, but it's been a long time. I knew a little Greek. He lived right down the street from me.
Good gyros?
Yeah, good gyros. Actually, our church had a Greek pastor when I was growing up. That was interesting.
Wow. He speak it or speak Latin?
Oh, yeah.
He spoke Greek.
Yeah, he preached right out of the Greek New Testament.
So what was his name? Paulinakonakonis or what?
Nicolaus Santacletes.
Yeah, that's about as Greek as it gets.
Yeah,
it's about as Greek as it gets. All right. What do you say to atheists? Devout atheists.
You better be right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got to make their own choices in life. I can't make a person believe anything and share my belief, and you do with you what you got to do.
In your opinion, what do you think makes an atheist an atheist?
There are very few true atheists in the world. I think everybody believes in something.
Yeah.
I think
it might be themselves.
I think people are more agnostic whether or not there's a supreme God, but that's just my view.
Of course, in our belief, it does them just as good.
Yeah.
Agnostic or atheist. I mean, if you don't know, or you don't think you know, or you don't,
Did you hear about the dyslexic agnostic?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he sat up all night wondering if dog really existed.
Let me go ahead and mark that, because that amount of audience off the charts there.
Yeah, there you go. We're in trouble now.
Yeah, I listened to this guy. He's on he's all over Facebook. Frank Turek, have you heard of him?
No.
He's an apologist, and he has a podcast called "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist."
Yeah.
And he goes to all these college campuses and stuff and does that. And he's got a book, of course, a book or two, and he's got some really good, compelling arguments. I mean, he breaks down physics and the whole what do you call it? Starts with an M, but he's a pretty good guy to listen to on apologetics.
Well, you gotta take a look at the world around us. You're a farmer, Yeah, I guess it could have all happened by chance, but what's science tell you? Everything has a cause and effect.
Yeah.
Whether you call it God or not, it's really. To me, it's important, but that's up to you. But things don't. I can take the pieces of my cell phone, throw them up in the air a million times, and it's never going to form a phone.
Right.
Somebody's got to put the thing together.
Right.
And that to me is one of the strong arguments for God.
Yeah, the more I read a bunch of history books and science, or nonfiction books, and the more and more, especially medicine, especially the human body, the more and more I read it, the more it solidifies my belief that there is no way that stuff came by any type of chance. There's not a number big enough. One in whatever the biggest number that's ever been counted to. It's just impossible for that type of design to come together. Form something.
And again, people got to make a choice. One thing I learned a long time ago, I can't make anybody believe anything. Nobody could make me believe anything,
Right.
I did some stupid stuff as a young man, and my parents would say to me, Kevin, don't do that. And I said, I can do it. I know what I'm doing. And, sure enough, 5 years later, I find out Mom and Dad weren't as dumb as I thought they were. But, and that's everybody's got to come to their own conclusion. But I think there's some strong evidence.
You heard the Mark Twain take on that. It's like, well, when I was 15 years old, I couldn't believe how much my parents didn't know. By the time I was 30 and came back home, I was amazed at the amount of stuff they learned in 15 years.
Amazing what Mom and Dad learned. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty good saying to it. So yeah. So we got the coronavirus going on. What do you say? And I probably know what you're going to say. What do you say to the people, like the religious zealots, that say this is God's judgment?
Oh, good. I'm glad. Get this thing over with. No, hey, listen, seriously. This stuff's bad, And I don't think, you can look back too much. There's too many examples in history of other diseases. I don't think it's an intentional thing. I think it's just a sign that we live in a broken world where bad people happen and sick people happen. And I could go into a lot of deeper theology on that. I don't want to make light of it either, but I think there's so much more to it than just God did this to us. Now, do I think God has a control and a hand? I do. But yeah, we just live in a broken world where people get sick and they die. It's been that way since Adam and Eve, and that's what we deal with.
So, okay. Next here, what do you say about I saw somebody on was it Twitter the other day? This has been a few months ago. And they were serious, and I'm guessing they were serious, but they got on Twitter and they asked people to pray for them that they could find their keys.
I guess you can pray about anything. I'll tell you the truth, Brent. I lost my class ring when I was in high school, and I actually prayed I'd find my class ring. The next spring, I was out turning my dad's vegetable garden over with a rototiller. Sure enough, there was my ring. That's a true story.
Did it sprout?
It just had sat there all winter. I guess it came off, and I didn't realize it the fall before, and I looked all over. And then 5 years later, somebody stole it from me. So I guess I still don't have it.
Freaking, oh, man.
It just ticked me off. That was back when they were real gold too. That was solid gold.
So coincidence or answer prayer?
I think sometimes God does intervene that way in our lives, and I've seen those prayers answered. So I'm going to tend to say answer to prayer.
Very good. That's what you're supposed to say, right? No, you can say anything you want to, but let's see. So yeah, no, I don't know. It's just kind of like, are we really kind of delegitimizing prayer when you're asking for everybody to? Would y'all just pray for me? I missed a button. I missed a button this week on my shirt, and I know if I redo it, it's going to be bad luck. Y'all pray for me that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful with it. Prayer. The biggest gossip chains in the church sometimes are the prayer chains. I went to a prayer meeting. It's another true story. I have a lot of true stories. I went to a prayer meeting one time, and this really happened. This lady stands up and she started naming this guy who was a high-powered official in town, and in the middle of her prayer, she said, "We just need to pray for Mr." I won't say his name because people might actually know him. We need to pray for Mr. So-and-so because we know he's having an affair with his secretary. I seriously, this was in a public prayer meeting, and she started going on about this guy's affair. And
so, do you think she was really wanting to pray for him, or she just wanted to get it out?
I think she wanted to put it out there.
That's
what I think.
What
was happening. So prayer isn't just asking for things. And I say this every Sunday to our congregation. Prayer is communication. It's talking and listening. It's two-way. And so I think we need to be careful with it. But I also think God cares about the little things in life. He cares about your crops. He cares about your cattle. He cares about what's going on in the world. He cares about coronavirus. But God also isn't. We're not robots where He just makes everything happen and makes us do everything. We have free choice and free will, and that's the world we live in.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. All right, this time I always wanted to ask you, do you have any good stories from the deathbed, from your deathbed vigils you've had? Supernatural stories.
One was a young lady here in our community, but not long after I'd been here. A lot of people knew her, and it's really, this isn't talking out of school. Her family's okay with her sharing this. Many of y'all remember Lindsay. She had a brain tumor. And I was with her just before she passed, and there was another pastor there. And he said to her, "Lindsay," he said, when you see Jesus, just run towards him. And true story, still gives me chills and brings tears to my eyes. Right after he said that, she stuck her arms up and held her arms straight out in front of her and pulled them in like she was hugging somebody and laid back on the pillow and died. True story.
Wow.
Watched it happen. And it was pretty powerful moment.
So was she like not vegetative at that moment? Was she not moving before that?
Not much. I mean, she was, I'm heavily sedated and everything because of the pain.
Should she have been able to do that? That kind of muscle movement?
I'm not medical enough to know. But no, I think it was a real supernatural moment. Now I've seen some other things, Brent. And this
Tell me.
On the other side, I was doing a funeral one time, and we brought the casket out of the church, and we set it up in the foyer area of the church I was at, and people were doing the walk by the casket thing, and I was talking to the funeral director. All of a sudden, I hear this noise over in the corner. Starts making this noise. A Kodak camera, and I look over, and there's the family, and they said, "Okay, Billy, get in there and give Grandma a kiss." And they're holding the little kid up to the casket, kissing Grandma.
Oh, my gosh.
And they shot 2.5 rolls of Polaroid film kissing Grandma and holding Grandma. And they had all the grandchildren around the casket. But it was just like every 30 seconds, that noise those Polaroid cameras make. And we just,
oh my
man.
gosh.
I talked to the funeral director. I said, "You ever seen that before?" He said, "No." And we were both dumbfounded, but they were happy. They had their film of Grandma with the kids with Grandma just before she.
Did they lift her corners of her mouth up to make her smile or anything?
No, it was pretty.
It was pretty morbid.
It was different. I guess back in the old days, I used to take pictures with dead people, but the dead people were the only ones smiling in the picture. I never. It's not something I would necessarily want to do again.
Yeah, I don't. It's not really a memory I have to have. I'm going to try to remember Grandma when she was making cookies or something.
Yeah,
not when she was laying there full of, embalming fluid.
I'm going to write 2 books when I retire, hopefully in about another 7 or 8 years. One book's going to be jokes I couldn't tell from the pulpit, and the other's going to be funeral and wedding stories. Oh my gosh, man. I had a pastor friend down Marfa, and he was doing a graveside service out on a ranch. They were burying Grandma out on the ranch. And it's sandy down there, and the grave gave way. And he said next thing he knew, he was laying down in the grave looking up at the casket, laying there in his suit, covered in dirt.
Wow.
He had another meeting to go to. He said it was one of those days, down in West Texas where we're in the Permian Basin where we're going back to, and in the summer, it's 134 in the shade. And
good luck with that, by the way.
Yeah, I can't wait. But this guy was standing there and laying down underneath laying under the cat. And when he was telling me his story, I couldn't help. I mean, I had tears coming out. I was laughing so hard because I know him, and he's kind of not really a serious guy, but he just, he'll cut up. It just, the picture of him laying underneath the casket.
Did he say, "Damn, it's hot down here"?
Get back. Turn around. No, that's not light. That's flames. Go the other way. Oh. So, poor guy. I mean, I actually felt bad for him, but I thought it was pretty funny thing. So you see some things. I watch those do you watch any of those near-death experience videos on YouTube? I watch the heck out of those. I love those things. Yeah, there are forces, I think, and I don't want to get into the weird, but I think there are forces. Well, now, I hope you do. There are forces that are beyond us, that there are things we can't understand. So my mom told me that, I don't know why this one's, well, I know why it sticks out because it's terrifying, but she said was she watching it on the news or something, or it was a news story report, and no, maybe somebody was telling her this, first-hand person, but so these paramedics found this guy on the side of the road, it was a wreck, and they came up on this guy, and he was on the side of the road, and he was messed up bad, and they were bringing him in and out of consciousness. And they lost him for a while, and finally got him back. They said he looked up at him and said, "Don't let me die. Don't let me die. They're coming to get me." Oh, man. And he died. Yeah. But he said, "Don't let me die. They are coming to get me." And that, I don't know why. That was a story I heard second or third hand. And if that's true, I mean, if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does. Well, that you want to do the heaven and hell quiz, but the heaven and hell's not just about a fire escape. No. It's not about getting, you're supposed to live a life that glorifies God. But yeah, I mean, I think, I've been at gravesides or at bedsides too, where people that really didn't demonstrate a knowledge of God. And I'm telling you, it's a different example between that and somebody knows the Lord. I did a funeral one time, and the family comes in and says to me, they said, now, Pastor, I didn't know him. It was what I used to call them generic funerals. We need a preacher. And we think Dad was Methodist some time ago.
Oh.
No church affiliation. And so I'm doing this meeting with the family in my office there, and this was in another place, and the family comes in, and they said, now, preacher, we just got to be really honest with you. Dad was not a nice guy. He was actually under investigation by the FBI for running illegal gambling, had tax evasion. He liked women, and he liked to pay for women, and and they were telling me all this. They were real honest about it. So we loved our dad, but he was not a nice guy. And they said, we don't know what you're going to do with that, but we just need you to know.
But here's some material just in case.
And they went on about this deal with the FBI, after him, and they were, I guess they were hot on his tail. He'd been running illegal card games. So I get to the funeral, and I stood up, and there was a lot of people there. He was real well known. And there's a bunch of people in the chapel there at the funeral home.
Did they all have Italian suits and dark sunglasses?
No, I was waiting for the Guido to come in the back door. But anyways, so we get up, and I stood up, and I looked out at the congregation, and I'm thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And I said, you all knew, buddy. He was an entrepreneur. Well, the whole place the family was just in hysterics. And after...
Did you get a curtain call? Did you come back for 5 more minutes?
I got to stay the whole time. And afterwards, the son came up to me, and he said, Dad would have loved that. He said that was perfect. So, it's kind of hard when they come in and don't give you much material to work with.
Or that kind of material to work with.
I did another one of those generics where I called the widower, and I said, I need some information on your wife. I said, I don't know him. And he said, she worked at the country store out in this little town. He said she worked there for 40 years. I said, okay. And he said, and I said, well, could you tell me a little about family? No, she worked at the country store for 40 years. I said, well, could I come out and visit you? No, I just said, I don't want you to visit me. And he said, she worked at the country store for 40 years.
Yeah.
Shortest funeral I've ever did. I think it was about 8.5 minutes, and we were done.
Anybody there?
Yeah, there was a few people, including a son that he didn't tell me he had. And
did he know he had?
He knew it, but he wasn't part of the family anymore. So, I'm telling you, people in times of grief, it's some weird things. You get some weird stuff.
The filter probably comes off.
It does. And, you kind of identify the person that's really upset over mom dying, and then the one that's in charge and making all the plans, and the one that's in the corner just kind of going, I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
So, but you work with them, and frankly, honestly, I joke that I prefer funerals to weddings, because weddings, there's too many divas, funerals, nobody's talking back to you most of the time.
I mean, I guess you can screw up a funeral. You can definitely screw up a wedding, but I mean, you can literally kill at a funeral and it's okay.
Yeah, well, we try not to do that, but we don't want to put anybody extra in the box. One's enough. Honestly, though, most of the time, it's actually a joy. It really is celebrating somebody, but it is. I've seen some weird things happen in funeral homes and in churches.
Yeah.
And
as far as people,
yeah, I mean, in the way people grieve, and you've always got. Usually, there's one that's misdramatic. I mean, obviously, loss is
right.
Loss, but. There seems to be some sort of reasonable limit.
Sure.
I've experienced a lot.
Hey, okay, ma'am, that's enough. 2 boxes of Kleenexes. That's your limit. Dry it up. Suck it up.
Well, I did one where you got the current wife and the ex-wife sitting together on the front row.
Wow.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or the weddings where, well, you got mom and his wife, and then you got dad and her husband, and then you've got the third ex-wife sitting over there.
Jeez.
And,
not quite a Walton's Christmas.
They're sometimes they're not. Most time I don't have any problems, but I have had a few.
All right. So what do people need to stop saying right now that they say all the time that just bugs the hell out of you? Thoughts and prayers?
Well, it's fine. You know, I'm praying for you if you really are, but you're not. So don't say it. Billy, I'll pray for you. And then a week later, you see Billy walking down the street, and you go, "Oh, dear Lord Jesus, be with Billy." Hey, Billy, I've just been praying for you.
Thoughts of prayer. I might pray for you, but I'm not going to be thinking about you the whole time. I mean, come on, that's a lot to ask, don't you think?
Well, some of the people, you know, the media are the ones that kill me. You know, our thoughts or prayers are with this person or with these people. No, you're not. Don't lie.
No.
I said you're looking for the next gory story to tell on the news.
You want to talk about the next guy that lost an arm and 4 fingers on the other hand.
And then they'll say, and now we have good news for you, and it's like a 30-second spot.
30 seconds.
You know, Billy found his pet dog. Isn't that good news? Okay, moving on, folks.
Jeez, yeah.
It's right now. My big pet peeve is, and I probably, you know, you may lose your license over this, but one of the local TV networks that keeps carrying this facts over fear. And then they tell you all the people that are dying from coronavirus, and we're short of meat, but don't panic buy. And we're just giving you facts, not fear. What is your problem?
I love how we're out of food, and they're pouring milk out on the pavement in the Midwest because they have too much of it to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of hard to make that. But my thoughts and prayers. Great idea if you're actually going to pray for them. You know, if you're not going to pray for them, don't say it. My other pet peeve is God has a plan for everything. You know, no, I don't know if everything. Does God know everything? Yes. Does God have a plan for everything? My pet dog got run over. Well, God has a plan for everything.
Yeah.
My wife and I, and it's not to bring us down, my wife and I lost a child when we were newly married. We had a little baby boy, and he didn't live very long. But, you know, and we got through it, and we had a lot of friends, a lot of support. But I can't tell you how many people sent us cards that said, God needed a flower in heaven.
Don't say it.
And so he picked your child and planted planted in heaven. I remember saying to my wife, "Well, why didn't you go dig in somebody else's garden and leave mine alone?"
Jeez.
You know, so you know, we have free choice, we have free will, we live in a broken world, and so sickness, disease, death are part of our world. But I'm not sure that it's all orchestrated in some sort of grand plan. Now I'm probably going to lose my ordination certificate over that. So.
Is that not Methodist protocol?
Yeah, actually, that's more Methodist. It's more the Presbyterian style that says, you know, everything is laid
predestined.
Predestined, yeah. I don't. That's and I grew up in a Presbyterian style church, so I've got a pretty checkered pedigree. I was raised in a Reformed church, Dutch Reformed, which is the seedbed of Calvinism, really. And then I went to a Baptist college. And while I was in a Baptist college, I was attending a fundamentalist Baptist church where, you know, soul winning, bus running, doing this, doing that church. And then my years in the military where I was in the Church of Life. And then
Church of Life.
Yeah. You learn a lot about your faith and religion when you're.
What did you drink at that communion?
Oh man, I you know,
like White Lightning or what?
A lot of Michelob.
Mickey's Wide Mouths.
And we were face down on the pavement a lot of weekends, unfortunately.
Oh man!
But paid a price for that. But then, you know, and then we ended up in the Methodist church, and that's kind of been our spiritual home for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's all right.
The Methodist church has got its problems, but there's a lot of good things I like. So
yeah, it seems like there's been some kind of issue they've been fighting over the last when did they join together? 40 years ago, whatever it is, 50 years ago.
Yeah, well, Methodism actually dates all the way back to the 1700s.
Sure, with John Wesley.
But the United Methodist Church, which has never been united, goes back to 1968.
Right.
So we're and that's probably about where it's going to end. We're not on the growing
No,
start.
it's not. It's not. No, that's what I meant. United Methodist. I know Methodism goes back to the 1700s. Everybody, before you even tweet that. So, all right, Kev, we're gonna get in. I'm gonna get into a couple questions here on your Bible stuff. So pull up your 3D Bible app there. No, you're not gonna find it in there because it's gonna be your questions.
I don't know how quick I can think. I'm
all right.
getting old.
Scariest story in the Bible.
Scariest story in the Bible. I'm not sure about looking down in a valley of a bunch of dead bones and watching them start rattling and coming together and skin growing over and standing up. I mean, that's just the first one off the top of my head.
So mine was Lazarus and the rich man.
Yeah.
That was pretty scary. Dude's looking up from hell, and it's just right out of his reach, man, and he can reach all day long, but he ain't getting back.
Yeah, reaching across the gulf.
Yeah. The Gulf of Funniest story in the Bible. I've got mine.
I think one of the funniest stories in the Bible is the story of Elisha. A lot of people aren't even aware of it, where he calls down the judgment of God on some boys that were mocking him. They called him old bald head, and it says a bunch of she-bears came out of the woods and ate 40 boys. What's that about?
Literally or allegory?
Well, there you go. Is it literal? Is it allegory?
Well, it doesn't matter. But my favorite story is 4 skins for a wife. You bring me 4 skins of 40 million Philistines, and I'll give you a wife. Can you imagine? Get that guy walking down the street with a bag of 4 skins thrown over his shoulder in a bag.
Well,
that's kind of redundant. You've got a bunch of bags in a no, not that those are bags, but in a bag.
And then there's the one where the Israelites tell these people that want to join them, but they know they're trying to spy on them. If you want to join us, we're gonna have to circumcise you first.
Yeah.
And it says while they were still in pain, 3 days later they killed them all.
3 days? How you'd be in pain for 3 months, wouldn't you? Or 3 years, or psychologically the rest of your life, wouldn't you?
There you go. That's why we do it to babies.
Please do it when I can. Please do it so I can't remember it. All right, let's see. Most misunderstood Bible verse.
Most misunderstood Bible verse. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper and give you a future and a hope. Everybody ignores the verses before it where it says you're going to suffer, your nation's going to be taken away from you, you're going to lose everything, and you're going to be left destitute. And then I know the plans I have for you. So, yeah, it looks pretty on T-shirts, but you better read it in its context.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good example right there. So we got the Bible verses up there. How much of it is literal, do you think? How much is metaphor or allegory, as they say?
One of the basic principles of hermeneutics, there's your theological word for the day. Hermeneutics, that's the study of hermeneutics. It's a study of preaching and biblical interpretation. But one of the first principles is read things in its plainest, clearest sense first before you start looking for hidden meanings. So I'll tell you the truth, and I get razzed by this even by other Methodist preachers. I tend to take most of the Bible fairly literally. There's obviously some verses that need to be interpreted, but I put it in its context and take it at face value for what it says first. And then you can start looking for the other meanings. Stories like getting eaten by bears. I mean, I don't know about that, but there it is. But, the Bible says there was a flood. I believe there is a flood. We don't have all the details either, realize. We just have a sketch of what happened.
It's pretty easy to understand getting eaten by a bear. I mean, that's pretty believable.
Well, in those days, I mean, it probably,
Did they have bears? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't. I can't bear to think about it.
Oh, gosh. He does that every week. Y'all.
I'm a little fuzzy on that one.
He's a little punished.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that people argue over, and till the end of time. And I'm listening to a book right now called Heaven and Hell. It's by Erath. Let me look it up here. It's really interesting. I haven't got to the end of the book yet, so I don't really know if he maintained being a Christian or not. But I'm going to pull it up on my Audible app here, and I'm not getting paid, although I wish I was. Bart D. Ehrman, A History of the Afterlife, Heaven and Hell. He gives of course, a good portion of the book is dedicated to the Christian perspective and the Old and New Testament perspective. And, of course, the Old Testament always talks about Sheol and all that stuff. So, but he gives a little bit of Hindu and a little bit of Muslim, not diatribes, but a lot of their scripture. And it's pretty interesting. And he gives a lot of stuff that's pretty, it's pretty argumentative.
Yeah.
But I always like to get kind of, no pun intended, the devil's advocate on a lot of this stuff. So, but he went into Revelation a lot, and how much of that is metaphor and how much of that is literal. And he makes you think a little bit on.
There's some pretty strong arguments that the book of Revelation is written more as what we call apocalyptic literature, not necessarily intended to be read literally. But you also got to realize everything in the Bible is written to and about a specific people that lived in time. Revelation is written to real people at the at the end of the first century and into the second century in the Roman Empire and all that the Roman Empire did. So, yeah, there's some. You got to look at you always got to look at the context.
Sure.
You got to look at its historical context, original language. Words can mean very different things. Like in the New Testament, you see the word love. We just think love. There's 3 different words for love in the Greek New Testament. And so you got to understand which word is being used and what its context is.
Yeah. So, it's that's why there's been books and books written on one book. It's pretty interesting stuff. But Revelation's the end of it, so that's probably a pretty good spot to end the this episode of somewhat serious, somewhat that I didn't hear our sponsor cut yet this week, but it might be Foreskins for a Wife. So I'm gonna have to go back and check on our sponsorship and see if they're willing to pay the freight this week for this episode. So guys. We really want to appreciate Kev, and before we go, we really want to extend our joy that we've had him, but our extensive sadness to see him go. He's been here the entire time our kids have been alive, and that's for some reason means something to us. I don't know why, but it's really it'll be a sad day to see him go. But as everybody knows, life goes on, and we dearly love Kevin and his wife, and just wish you well, and. Don't burn up. Don't fall in a grave or anything like that when you go down to the Permian Basin.
Well, we've been down there before. We've lived in Odessa twice, so we know the area well. Leaving Hereford's going to be tough. We've really enjoyed it. And I said I'm going to have to get black and gold and have a Mustang shirt for the football season for the Andrews Mustang. But I just might wear my white face shirt underneath. So
what are you going to do without those sod poodle games?
Oh, man, I'm bummed about that. Well, we're only not about an hour from Midland, so we can go watch the Rockhounds.
Oh, okay.
We can watch the sod poodle. We were freaked out, man, over there not having a fit baseball season this year. That just got me really. We were so excited for it. But there you go.
Is it completely canceled?
I believe they are pretty much done. I don't know. There's been all kinds of talk, but I think it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
They can't really get a season in now unless they play in November, which is okay too.
Yeah, it stays warm pretty good long time here. So,
but Brent, we appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I had to get you on here. We said we'd do this sometime, and
I'm trying to think of a good joke for you to go out on. Here you go, and this one will really lose half your audience, probably, and get me in trouble. But
all right, I'll go from 2 to 1.
What song is never sung in the Catholic Church anymore?
What's that?
He touched me. Oh, he touched me. Okay.
Hey, everybody. That's Kevin Bushart if you need him. I don't know if he wants his Twitter handle out there, but it's at RevKev. And you can send all hate mail direct messages to that address if you want to. And you can also find us, because I'm supposed to remember to tell everybody where to find us. That's the Dryland Farmer Podcast. It's at Trader Brent. And whenever Landon gets around to doing it, that's at No Twit Landon 44. He is our co-host, my co-host. And you're going to find us all over the Global Ag Network. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. Probably not anything religious related. Maybe this week I'm gonna have to put religion and God in the tag words this week, so the metadata will get caught up in that. So maybe I'll get a couple extra listeners and maybe even some converts to Methodism. But guys, and also of course find us on the Global Ag Network. And See, what is it? It's not Eat, Pray, Love. That's a movie. Eat Farm Now. It's a deal over in England. They've got a great website. Check them out. And until next time, everybody, we'll ask you, what side of the line are you on? The Dryline Farmer Podcast brought to you by Foreskins for a Wife. It's not really a thing anymore. It was like 3,000 years ago, but now you could just take her out on a date. The Dryline Farmer Podcast, all rights reserved, 2020, a member of the Global Ag Network.